Okay, and thank you, Stephen. And for those that don't know Stephen, he's in our communications department and very creative, and we appreciate his hard work along with the rest of that team. So welcome to the the voting session for the Board of Mayor and Aldermen for Tuesday, November the 23rd. We're going to begin tonight with an invocation, and I'll ask Alderman Barnhill to lead in that. And then I'll lead the Pledge of Allegiance. And so if you'll join me in standing.
Please. Heavenly Father, we come to you again tonight in prayer, thanking you for this time of the year when we have a chance to reflect on our many blessings, share family together, and we ask that you be with each of us when we do this. We also know that many times families are separated by either military service or other avenues. We ask that you be with them. We also ask that you be with those who protect our everyday freedoms that we have. And this prayer we ask in Christ's name, amen.
Amen.
Please join me in the pledge. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is an opportunity for citizens to make comments on items that are not on the agenda. As you're aware, there are speaker cards, and I have a number of speaker cards for one of the items already, but I have none for items not on the agenda. So we'll continue to move forward. I have no communications from the Williamson County Commission, and we'll go on to the minutes now from November the 9th work session and November the 9th Board of Mayor and Alderman meeting. And I see I haven't called the roll. So if it's okay with you, I'm going to have the roll call while we take the vote. Would that be okay? Good, thank you. So I would entertain a motion for the minutes.
Motion to approve the minutes.
Thank you. Seconded by Alderman Peterson. So let's have a roll call vote then. If there's no discussion. So Alderman Barnhill?
Yes.
Alderman Blanton?
Yes.
Alderman Hanson?
Yes.
Alderman Peterson?
Yes.
Alderman Berger?
Yes.
Alderman Brown?
Yes.
Alderman Potts?
Yes.
And Alderman Baggett.
Yes.
And Vice Mayor, I'm having difficulty remembering you're the new Vice Mayor, so my apologies for that. So you're doing a good job. I don't have any recognitions tonight, but I do have a couple of miscellaneous reports, and the first one is the tree lighting on December the 3rd. It's 6 p.m. This, I'm really excited about it. We've got some special guests this year that you probably see some trailers out on the internet talking about the special guests. Matthew West and Kayla Tucker are going to be here, and as usual, it's going to be a great event. It's my understanding it starts somewhere around 6, but I know people are going to show up earlier than that, and I know our team's doing a great job. Then the second thing is the Christmas parade has returned, and it returns on December the 4th at 2 p.m. I would alert you that because of the construction on 96 West, there is going to be, we're going to try to keep people away from that area, is my understanding. And the parade actually will start more at Fifth Avenue and Hillsborough Road than further out where we've usually started. It'll be staged further out. So if you can pass that word along, and that's at 2 p.m., and you will be able to see the new alderman, hopefully riding in some convertibles and waving at everybody. And
There you go.
practice your wave, alderman. So I think that's all I had. Do you have any miscellaneous reports, Eric?
I think you hit it well.
Great.
Happy
thanks.
Thanksgiving, everybody.
That was for the end of the meeting, but I'll
No,
let
sir.
you say that. So next is items on the consent agenda, and we're considering items number 9 through 14 tonight on the consent agenda. And these items are deemed to be non-controversial and routine in nature by the governing body, and they'll be approved as recommended by committee or staff by one motion of the governing body. So I would entertain a motion.
Move for approval.
Thank you all.
Second.
And thank you, Alderman Brown. So any discussion? Ready to vote? Alderman Barnhill,
Yes.
Vice Mayor,
Yes.
Alderman Hanson.
Yes.
Alderman Peterson.
Yes.
Alderman Berger.
Yes.
Alderman Brown.
Yes.
Alderman Potts.
Yes.
And Alderman Baggett way down on the end.
Yes.
Thank you. Passes unanimously.
Upset about it.
Next, we're going to go to item 3, and this is a public hearing, and this is a public hearing considering ordinance number 2021-21, an ordinance to amend the Franklin zoning ordinance and zoning map as part of an annual update. So, it's going to be hard to talk about ClickShare.
Give me just a moment. It worked before the meeting. The circle of death is moving, so that's a good sign.
It always moves a lot slower when you're the one
Certainly
having to
does.
present, I understand.
It's like watching the pot boil.
Mm-hmm.
Not happening. All right. Now we're moving. All right, apologies about that, but I'm Kelly Dannenfelser, and I'm the Assistant Director of Planning and Sustainability for the city. And tonight is the second reading and public hearing for the annual zoning ordinance update. Because there are some new aldermen with us, I'm going to give a little bit of background and context about zoning and what it means for Franklin, and then into the update. But before we talk about zoning, we go to the long-range plan, because the foundation of zoning is a good long-range plan that sets the vision for the city of Franklin. And Envision Franklin was adopted back in 2017, and the vision is that Franklin will be a connected community of vibrant neighborhoods anchored by its historic downtown. The city seeks to strategically manage growth while preserving historic resources and natural beauty. Exceptionally designed places will enhance Franklin's distinctive character and foster continued economic vitality. So Envision Franklin sets the vision, but the zoning allows the vision to be implemented because it sets the standards. The purpose of zoning is to promote the public health, safety, and welfare of a community. It segregates land uses that are incompatible with one another. It protects property values. It protects citizens against nuisances. It regulates development in accordance with the community's standards and values. And it also establishes a transparent public process for land use and zoning decisions. The city divides the land into different districts, and it provides minimum development standards for development through zoning. And those standards matter because they can achieve a variety of results depending on what those standards are. The zoning standards can result in this kind of place on the screen, with low-scale buildings, ornamental light fixtures, wide sidewalks, on-street cafes, on-street parking, subtle signage. It can also result in this kind of place. So the standards matter. The standards can result in the open space that you see on the left side that's cherished and public versus what you see on the right side of the screen. And development standards can result in buildings and site design that reflect either of these photos on the screen, depending on what those standards are. So after Envision Franklin was adopted, the staff started to work on the major zoning ordinance update of 2019. And it was a robust drafting process. We had countless public meetings, a lot of community involvement, focus meetings on different topics, hands-on workshops to get from the community what types of development they preferred to see in our city and what types of development they did not prefer to see. And we were able to incorporate those into our site design standards with the update. And really that reflected the vision from Envision Franklin. It reinforced what we had already heard through that public process as well. We also did a lot of updates to the ordinance. We really deconstructed it and put it back together in a much more organized and easy-to-use manner. This is the way that you used to have to determine what the zoning district allowed, and we reorganized all of that and replaced it based on the district so that you go straight to the district and find out what all of those dimensional standards are. We had a lot of positive public feedback through that process. They favored the new ordinance. It gives more certainty. We like the architectural requirements. A lot of positive feedback, and that was adopted at the end of 2019. With any text amendment or rezoning process, it goes through a thorough public process. And for us, that includes a joint conceptual workshop discussion, a planning commission recommendation and public hearing, and a BOMA work session for continued discussion, and then 3 readings at the board level with a public hearing at the second reading. And that's where we are tonight at the second reading and public hearing for the 2021 update. And it includes a number of small revisions to the ordinance. We've done this every year since the major update of 2019. Cleanups, minor revisions, and small corrections to help keep our ordinance working well. It also includes 5 proposed rezonings, and I'll go over those briefly. The first one is the addition of the FFO, or Floodway Fringe Overlay District, east of Mac Hatcher and generally south of Liberty Pike, to add the FFO, or Floodway Fringe Overlay District, to property that matches the FEMA maps that cover the 100-year floodplain. So this is just aligning our local zoning with FEMA's adopted maps. The next one is the Williamson Medical Center rezoning from Civic Institutional, or CI, to Regional Commerce 12, which is east of I-65 and west of Carruthers Parkway and north of Murfreesboro Road. The third one is the historic Macklemore House Museum in the Hard Bargain neighborhood, and that is a rezoning from a residential district to CI and the Historic Preservation Overlay District to allow for the museum to come into compliance with the ordinance. This one is the historic Merrill Williams House rezoning. It's also a proposed rezoning from a residential district to the CI district and the HPO district to allow for a heritage center to be located there. The last is the Five Stones Church property to rezone it from central commercial to office residential. And this rezoning was requested by a previous alderman due to complaints about traffic congestion and stacking on the street from a school that was located there temporarily while the church was operating. This rezoning is the only one that does not have property owner support for it, and there was significant discussion at the last work session about this particular rezoning. So if it is not the will of the BOMA, this could be removed with an amendment to the main motion for approval on this application. We are here tonight for the second reading and public hearing, and staff recommends approval of ordinance 2021-21. And I'll turn it back over to the mayor for the public hearing portion.
Okay, thank you, Kelly. I'm glad your computer started. So I do have a number of people that want to speak on this item, and we welcome your conversation and your comments. And so we're going to allow you 2 minutes each, and we'll start with, I'll just read them off, and if you can keep order and just line up, that would be fine. We have Lydia Miller, Bob Ravner, Sean Clark, Rudy Jordan, Margaret Martin, a very unfamiliar name in town, John Robertson, and Diane Christian. So,
You ready?
hey, how you doing, Lydia? Good seeing you.
I'm fine, thanks. I'm Lydia Miller, 1328 Carnton Lane. I'm here to speak against the rezoning of 236 Second Avenue South, which is Five Stones Church. When they purchased the property, it was zoned central commercial, and they did not request this rezoning, that it be downzoned to office residential. Individual property rights should preclude a spot rezoning such as this that would clearly result in such a diminishment, of market value for the property owner, except in cases of eminent domain, such as an arbitrary and unilateral decision by a city government reflects a very negative optic on that governing body and does nothing to improve the welfare of its voting citizens. Therefore, I'm asking you to vote against this. Kelly just read that the purpose of a zoning ordinance is to protect the property value. This devalues the property, and it is not for the betterment of these property owners. Thank you.
Good evening, Bob Ravner, 221 3rd Avenue South. Welcome, new alderman and new vice mayor. Congratulations. I'm here to speak about why this has even come to the light of BOMA. It's the ongoing traffic and congestion issues that we face downtown. The whole issue of this emerged because of the challenges of getting around that downtown area. And what I would suggest to BOMA is take a long-term view, take a comprehensive look at the downtown traffic congestion, speed, and safety that we've now seen just in the last few months become a bigger and bigger issue. And I met with Pastor Clark, with Rudy Jordan. He's told us that he has no intention of adding schools, preschool, after school, any of that, and I take him at his word for that. But at the same time, I don't think we should be doing anything that's going to increase the added traffic and congestion that's already a problem. So I'd ask to take a long-term look at this. Thank you.
Alderman Martin, former Alderman Martin, we're going to recognize you. We know you're going to speak when you want to, so just come on up.
First of all, I want to thank you
Margaret,
for
speaking
having
to
me.
the microphone.
I want to welcome all the people from the church that are here tonight, and we are not here to belittle the fact that the church is here. God knows we want the church, but wherever he wants it. But this is something else. This is for another reason. Through the 1980s, this property on South Margin and First and Second Avenues was zoned heavy industrial. We had the tobacco warehouses, the coal yard, the train depot, the chicken plant, and the city storage of water meters in one of the houses on Second Avenue. One property was left central commercial when all of this was changed, while the others were changed to office residential to provide a buffer to the residential area. This was an antique shop which was not detrimental to the homes around it. Already, this property has changed. It's changed from an antique shop to a church, which is permitted in central commercial. This is detrimental to the neighborhood because of the increased traffic tie-ups and lack of parking. It could be grandfathered in, but it is subject to change to anything allowed in central commercial, which is, I don't have a list, but almost anything. And this is one property that does not line up with the other. And I don't know, Kelly, if you can't show it on that, how it lines up. I've got it right here, but nobody can see it. Okay, the green is the office residential, the red is the central commercial. And if you will look across the street, the green does not line up with that site. If that were zoned office commercial, it would line up. There is central commercial around it, but it's not right. This particular site would line up with what is across the street and on down to Church. The zoning could probably creep down, the zoning could and probably would creep down Second Avenue if it remained central commercial, and would destroy the residential neighborhoods nearby. Our properties are very fragile downtown, and I'm asking you to rezone this Second Avenue lot from central commercial to office residential to align with the properties across the street. We are not asking for the church to close. The church could stay as long as it's a church. But if it ever changed from a church, then it would go back to office residential. And I know what John said, and I know your argument, Clyde, about it when we talked about this before, and John said this was an antique neighborhood. The antique shops are not a problem, but it changes. It can change from an antique shop to a church to a filling station. You know, whatever is permitted in central commercial would be available for permission on this lot, and it would be very detrimental to the neighborhood. Thank you.
Sean Clark?
Can I defer to the end, please, sir?
Sure. Rudy Jordan?
I'll try to speak into the microphone, Brandy. We all look at downtown Franklin as the crown jewel of our town. And a lot of people move to town and they think it's lovely. It always has been. But Ann, Clyde, and others know that it's been a long time coming. There's a lot of work that's gone into not only residential neighborhoods, but in the mix that we've got downtown. Peter and I moved to, I didn't say who I was, Rudy Jordan. I live at 231 2nd Avenue South. We moved the house there to that location in 1973. It was going to be torn down and was going to be used as the parking lot for First Horizon Bank, which was back then Harpeth National Bank. 10 years later, I moved another house that was going to be torn down to my backyard. I'm a former director of the Heritage Foundation, was the founding director of the Downtown Franklin Association. I have bought houses downtown. A lot of people sell houses, but Diane will tell you I keep them. I have to agree with what Kelly said about the zoning, that downtown is what anchors this town. And the fact that we have always had residential and business on 2nd Avenue has been a great fit. We've been good neighbors. There's never been a problem. And Sean knows that my first objection to this property was not the church, but when the school came in. He sent a lovely letter to all of us tonight saying that the church will not have a school there. Is my time up?
Yeah, I'll give you a few more seconds. If you'll go ahead and finish up.
Okay. So I'm just going to echo what Margaret said, and that is, what if the church decides to leave tomorrow, or 5 years from now, or 20 years from now when I'm not here? We don't know what could go in, and we want to protect what is so very special about downtown. Thank you.
John Robertson?
I just wanted to echo what's been said, what Rudy just mentioned. She and I are probably the only two residents now left on Second Avenue South. My wife and I have been there for 40 years.
Wow.
And we have watched it go through so many changes. But recently, the traffic has gotten just ridiculous, and the parking has become impossible. Years and years ago, when we first established ourselves there, we didn't understand why the Postal Service didn't walk that block and deliver to people's doors. And we actually went to the Postmaster General and asked that that be changed because we were being told to put mailboxes at the curb. Well, that never happened, so we continue to have mailboxes to this day. And it surprises me, but they don't have to deliver the mail if they can't get to the box. So what happens is the mail carrier is driving down the street, and they are picking and choosing where they're going to drop the mail. And what they have to do in order to get to the box when the streets are lined bumper to bumper from 8 o'clock in the morning until 7 o'clock at night, they've got to turn the engine off, get out of the car, walk to the mailbox, put it in, get back in, start the engine, and move to the next house. And there are times when they literally don't deliver the mail. It has become impossible to get in and out of our driveways. There are people double parked all the time. And what seems to have really evolved here is that when in the beginning of our living on the street, we were under the understanding that when anybody purchased one of these homes and they were going to turn it into a business, that they were required to have on-site parking for the number of employees that they had in their building. And they were only allowed a limited number of people based on the square footage of the footprint of the structure. And that never seemed to be maintained, and I don't know whether that's a figment of my imagination, but anyway, it never, ever was policed. And so what happens now is that you have people purchasing these homes, and they may have 2 or 3 employees, but they may have 30, 40, 50 people coming by all day long, parking and going in and out of their businesses. And so we've lost complete control of that. And it's getting dangerous. There is one business on that street now that involves children coming to visit all day long. They jump out of their cars and they dart across the street, and traffic is flying up and down there, sometimes 40, 50 miles an hour on a pedestrian street. And it's an accident waiting to happen. The congestion has gotten out of control. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I have a point of order. Asked Mr. Roberts to clarify one thing he said.
Sure.
All right. So, Mr. Roberts, when you said the people go in and out of the businesses, is that in the bluish area in what's already now central commercial?
Yeah, it's in the office residential area. Office residential. He's asking where the business across the street.
Oh, I'm sorry. What?
They're on both sides of the street, but the one in particular that I'm referring to is across the street from my house.
On the green blue,
That map right there.
Yes, it's in the
Okay.
turquoise.
the turquoise, I'm sorry.
Yes.
So the area you were speaking about is in the turquoise? About the people going in and out of the businesses and all that?
Yes.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, one more point of order, if you would. We don't normally do this. how do you think the rezoning how do you think the rezoning is going to solve the issue you just described, which is the businesses? Okay.
Yeah, I think I'll continue
You'll cut
on
that
with
off.
the public hearing if I could,
Sounds good.
and until Alderman got a motion on what they want to do. Diane Christian?
Hi, I'm Diane Christian. I live at 218 Emily Court in the Brownstones, and I have an office at 202 2nd Avenue South. In the past 2 years, I have seen the traffic double or triple on 2nd Avenue and Church Street. My concern is not the church. I have no opposition to the church. I think this summer, when the school was there temporarily, we had a tremendous traffic problem, and we still do. There's so much added traffic there. The area has been so nice to be, in the past, to be primarily residential or office, and to see that there is the possibility of more commercial coming in is concerning to me, as I think all of us here. I think that if the church could be grandfathered in and a change made to the zoning, it would be wise on the fathers of this city and the downtown residents, as well as the people that visit here. I know John has a concern about safety. We are at the corner of 2nd Avenue and Church Street, and we see cars go through the four-way stop ridiculously fast, and they don't stop so many times. My son says many times he can't believe that we don't see accidents there all the time. We're surprised that it's not patrolled more frequently and tickets given. But as a lifetime resident of Franklin and Williamson County, and having seen the changes that have been made over the years and the beauty of our incredible city, it almost gives me chills to see what we have. And I just hate to see us be short-sighted in not being smart and diligent in what we do ahead of the current time. Thank you.
And Mr. Clark, you wanted to be last, so you are last.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you, Mayor, Board of Aldermen. Appreciate you giving me a moment to speak tonight. Thank you to the citizens that have come and spoken favorably of us as a church. Just to let you know a little bit about us, we're a church that started in 2016. We started at Freedom Intermediate School. It's a place that we met until COVID. We leased this spot here on 2nd Avenue and purchased it beginning of this, or middle of this past year, this year. As far as who we are as a church, we're a church that doesn't want to cause problems, we want to solve problems. We have served regularly at Freedom Intermediate School. You're more than welcome to call Dr. Hoag and ask him how we were as tenants there, and I can tell you you're going to get a favorable response about us. In fact, we continue to go back and serve Freedom Intermediate School, even though we do no longer meet there. We serve Liberty Elementary School. No kids that go to our church go to Liberty Elementary School, yet that's not our goal. Our goal isn't just to serve where our kids go to school. Our goal is to serve this community. We've served Centennial High School multiple times. None of our kids go to Centennial High School, yet we serve Centennial High School because our goal is to serve this community and to take care of this community. For us, we are constantly trying to find ways to solve problems, not make problems. In fact, one of our most recent ones, we've been working with the city and the historic board and met a new friend, La Casa de Mi Padre. He accidentally painted his building and didn't do the right thing and has gone through a series of meetings to try to rectify it, and they've asked him to take it all the way back to the brick. So our church actually took up an offering and presented it to the pastor and said, look, we want to be a part of the solution to help get your building back to the way that it is. As far as who we are and what we're trying to do, we're trying to solve problems and not create problems. So this is really difficult for me because I really wish I'd have known at the time, and I've told those residents here in this community that there was a traffic issue, and I do apologize to everyone here because I did not want to cause a traffic issue, and I know we did. We caused a traffic issue because, again, we were trying to solve a problem. A school was kicked out of their building. They contacted numerous churches and got a no from them, and we said yes to them with limited space. We moved out of our building and allowed them to move these kids into our building for the remainder of the school year only. We went and met in coffee houses as a staff. We handled our deal. May I continue to tell you a little bit?
I'll give you just a few more seconds.
Thank you very much, sir. I appreciate it. And in this, we allowed them to meet in our building. Day one, they met in our side yard, and they were loud. I didn't know that because I wasn't in the building. The gentleman next door to me actually has a business. He got on our website, found our info at Five Stones Church, emailed me, and then after emailing me, I saw this, went immediately to the school and said, look, you cannot meet outside and y'all can't play outside. He actually contacted me immediately and said, I've never seen anybody solve a problem this fast. Had we known there was a problem, and there was a problem, again, I'm sorry for this, we would have bussed them over from Pinkerton Park. We would have done something because it's a temporary solution to the problem. I don't want to create another problem. I'm asking you guys to do the same. In this, please don't create a problem for us by trying to fix a problem. And you've heard numerous people say there is a traffic problem. But if anything, we as a church help that traffic problem. We have 4 people right now that actually office out of our building, and we have spaces next to our building. And so we are not causing a traffic issue. We're actually alleviating a traffic issue Monday through Friday. And the time that we actually operate on a Sunday morning, there is no traffic whatsoever in downtown Franklin, especially on this street. I hope you hear us. We want to work with the city. And as I spoke with you, Patrick, I'll be willing to come up with any solution that helps put their mind at ease. I've got a letter for each and every individual here. They can take this home with them with my phone number on it, and you can hold me to my word. It's not our goal to create more of a problem in downtown Franklin. We want to alleviate problems and help people live here and have a fun time living here, because it's our goal that you experience the love of Jesus that we have experienced, and that's only going to come by us serving you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. I'm going to declare the public hearing closed, and I'll entertain a motion.
I'd like to speak, please.
We need a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to have this item deleted from the zoning ordinance change.
I'll second that.
I'd like to speak on that motion. So
Let me understand your motion, if I may, Alderman Hanson.
The zoning change for Five Stone Church from the zoning ordinance change. I do not want to see their zoning changed.
And are you also asking for approval of the remainder of the ordinance in your?
I have another item as well on this zoning that needs clarification in a different section on this zoning.
Would it be good if I just made a motion to approve the whole?
Yes.
Okay, I can do that. So I move that we approve on second reading the materials.
Ordinance 2021-21.
Thank you, yes.
And there's a second to that. And you would then come with
Now I can
amendments.
speak.
Where was Ann's second?
Patrick,
Way down here.
yeah, other end of the building.
So
So,
So, point of order, Ms. Mayor. You understand that Ann made a motion, you seconded it for the overall thing. So if we want to take that out, we'll need an amendment. Is that
and
correct?
that was my question to Alderman Hanson. Are you,
I'd like to make an amendment to the motion
okay?
to
Please.
delete the zoning change for Five Stones Church at 236 Second Avenue South.
And I will second that.
This is a map, similar to this one. This came off of the city's website. With the zoning codes, it shows your different colors just like this. Now, you cannot tell me that a bar that backs up to their parking lot that's open all kinds of hours playing music with drunk people leaving is any worse in that neighborhood than this church. I also spoke personally with several of the neighbors who also had no problem with the church being there. They have not seen any significant issues. This is a personal preference item that's being pushed through. It was theft of their zoning, which is causing a financial hardship to a church who, by the way, is protected by state and federal law for a church to be in any property they want to under protection of state and federal statutes. There is no grandfathering that needs to be in there. A church can be in any property that they want because they're exempt and protected under state and federal statutes. There is only a couple of homes that are lived in currently as a personal residence. A couple of the other not residents, but occupants and owners are concerned that if we change one, we can change them all. We are at risk of a lawsuit that we cannot win as a city. This is going to bring spiritual repercussions to us for tarnishing a church, and they could have their loan called by their lender and have to pay it and be out of their property because it does not meet with the compliance that their loan was provided on. I vote to remove this item from the zoning ordinance change.
Does anyone else want to speak to the amendment?
Yes, I would as the 4th Ward Alderman, if that's appropriate.
Go ahead, Alderman.
I appreciate Alderman Hanson's comments and certainly don't want to bring any spiritual repercussions on any of us for any of these decisions. I think that, though, is not necessarily appropriate in this conversation. I've heard those that are speaking, even for the change, who have vocalized their support for the church. And know and have had conversations with both the pastor and those that want this change, who are believers and who do want to see the church continue in the current operations without change. And that is the goal. And I think when I spoke with the pastor, I spoke with the concerned neighbors, at no point was anyone ever attacking the existence of this church in that particular spot. Let me tell you what the concerns I did hear, and you heard a lot of them. First of all, is the downtown, we have to protect it. It's a neighborhood. It is not something that we can be flippant with, and that means we should consider very seriously the zoning and the allowances of use in every property, not just today, but for the future. So if there is a way, and I do believe there is, where we can ensure that this church continues operating with the goodwill of the neighbors, quite frankly, who want it there, but yet we protect what actually is a piece of property that probably should be office residential long-term anyway, that if we can achieve both of those, then everyone wins. And so when you look at the financial impact, which someone spoke to, two different, now I'm not a realtor, but I can do simple math and see property tax sales. But 217 2nd Avenue, office residential building sold for $625 a square foot. 209 2nd Avenue, office residential building sold for $1,300 a square foot. This church purchased the building for around $250 a square foot. I can't speculate what they will sell, and the intention of the pastor, quite frankly, is to stay in the building long term. They're not looking at this as a property play to cash out. They want to be a part of the community down there. So financially, I mean, yes, of course, we can consider all of that. This building right now, there could be a daycare. Although, listen, hear me say this: the church does not want this, and I believe them; they will not do this. But in Central Commercial, it allows for an event venue. Anybody else heard of any other event venues that might not belong in downtown? I mean, there's a daycare, educational facilities, a theater is allowed, places of public assembly or a restaurant. I will vote against this amendment because I believe that we need to protect this neighborhood, and the best way of doing it, now I will say, and I may have to ask staff this, by doing this, I don't know who I should direct this to. Kelly?
I'm going to assume.
Yeah. By doing this, does this prevent this church from continuing to operate as long as they own and continuously operate in that property?
When a property is rezoned, a use that's legally established in that property can continue regardless of what the zoning change is. So the church, in this case, should the rezoning go through, the church can continue to operate in perpetuity so long as they don't abandon that use for 30 months or more.
Could they sell it to another church to operate there?
They could.
So we could have multiple, it could be different churches that operate. So we're not preventing a church from being there by doing this.
Any type of place of public assembly would be included as part of the legally non-conforming use.
And they could continue to happen.
Yes.
But if we do office residential and they sell it to someone who wants to put a theater there, now there's lots of other issues I know about parking and other zoning, but just use. That is a conforming use to central commercial, but if we change this to office that would not be allowed. It would not be able, it could only be what is allowed under office residential. That person could not buy it and put a theater there because we have changed it to office residential and they're changing the use, and so that would not be allowed. That use would not be permitted if they wanted to do that.
That's true. If the church decided to leave then and not be another church, then any new use would need to conform with a new zoning district. Should it go through, would be office residential. So it could be office or a charitable or fraternal organization or a single-family residential.
And most of the offices on the street are professional offices. Most of them are. So my point is, thank you. I just want to make sure that we're clear that we are not preventing the church from continuing to operate.
Right. A difference would be the church can continue to operate, but with the OR district, another use couldn't be combined with that. Like a daycare couldn't go in or another educational facility on top of the church. It would be the church use or what's permitted in the OR district.
Okay.
I've got Alderman Berger, and then I'll recognize you, Alderman Barnhill.
Okay, so I need some clarification here, too. Thank you. Patrick, those were great questions. This mic is,
Go ahead and speak.
hello? Can you hear it?
There you go.
Okay. I guess it's broken, so we need that fixed. So, two questions here. If you make changes to the can they make changes to the property or at all? I don't know if there's room back there to add on a bathroom or add on something. If they make any changes to that, does that affect them as they're grandfathered in?
The development standards, like the minimum setbacks, would fall under the new zoning ordinance. So they would need to meet the rear yard setbacks and side yard setbacks, but those are in line with what you see in the OR district down the street toward Church Street.
Okay, so that wouldn't threaten their use or threaten their being grandfathered in, right?
Right, it would essentially preserve the backyard, which backs up to other residential. In that case, it makes sense to have a minimum rear yard setback in order to protect the
So
adjacent
they just have to
properties.
meet any regulations that normally would have to be met.
Right, and
No.
any addition, because it's in the historic preservation overlay, the HPO, would need to go before the Historic Zoning Commission for review and approval.
Okay, now, one more thing. Talked about use. You said you couldn't add a school and you couldn't add daycare, but if the church had a ministry and had a mother's morning out for the mothers of that church, could not they do that?
That would
'Cause that's
likely
part of their
closely
ministry.
fall under the daycare commercial use, which would not be permitted.
How about if that's part of their ministry to give a mother's morning out? It's not a daycare. It's a mother's morning out program. We've all been a part of that as young moms, where our churches did a mother's morning out program for us. We paid a minimal fee because, we had to pay somebody to be there with the children. It was basically a ministry of the church. So I'm concerned about that, because a lot of churches like to do mother's morning out. It's different than daycare.
Yeah, it's my understanding that that would be part of, the characteristics of a specific use go for review by our zoning administrator and the Building and Neighborhood Services Department. So whatever they determine, based on those specific characteristics of a particular use, they'd make a zoning determination on what type of use that's classified as.
Well, I remember Seward Hall, when they added that building up there, Bethel had that. They wanted to add a school and everything, and they said it was part of their ministry, it was part of the church ministry, so they allowed them to do so because it fit, even though they were grandfathered in. So I'm curious why you said daycare couldn't go there or a school couldn't go there again. I mean, if they did a homeschool program, what if they did, I'm very curious about this because it does affect them. If they decided to do a hybrid homeschool program where they brought in moms and dads and children for a few hours a day to do a hands-on program with maybe a math teacher came in for 2 hours and taught the children math and everybody else goes home. So you have an option to do mathematics with a teacher in a school setting, but it's within a church because it's part of their ministry. See, we get very sticky sometimes with these things. So I hate to say yes or no to something unless I'm clarified better on what they can and can't do, because I honestly don't know this church, I don't know this pastor, but I don't know what kinds of ministries you would have, if you'd have a Mother's Morning Out, or if you would participate with a hybrid homeschool where you'd have people come in. And that means people come in, 10 cars or 5 cars, they drop children off and then they leave, and they're there 2 to 3 hours. It's all different.
Tom?
A lot of different things, Tom. Probably too many questions, right?
Good evening. I'm Tom Marsh, the Director of the Building and Neighborhood Services Department. The zoning administrator is part of my department, and we make those zoning interpretations. You are kind of straying into a few different categories and questions.
Yep.
When you talk about a school use, and actual educational occupancy is a different animal based on fire code and building code requirements. And any school, and even a homeschool operation, that's one of the things we have to be very careful about. And just as a general statement, the requirements for a school are different from the requirements for a Sunday school classroom in a church. If any place of public assembly, a church, decides to operate even a homeschool mentoring or tutoring program, the requirements change. Churches have a special allowance as a place of public assembly and for Sunday schools based on the fact that the parents or the guardians are in the building as they are meeting. When the parents drop off the children and are no longer, to someone else's supervision, that makes it an educational occupancy and is a different requirement. So when you talk about now the operation of a specific ministry of the church as a Mother's Day Out program or something like that, it's very tricky if they're actually doing a commercial daycare operation. Then we would have to, I think, treat that as a commercial daycare and look at the more stringent requirements for parking and a commercial business. But you're getting into details of
Yeah.
a particular church and how they operate
Right.
that it's hard to answer on a general.
Would that, let me clarify one thing. Would that, and I'll stop there because I know we need to move on. Would that include, that wouldn't include like if they just did an internal thing for their own moms, like a Bible study, and then they had a, morning out program associated with the moms?
Correct. And there are other churches that have a lot of meetings during the week with various groups. But generally, those other church meetings that happen during the week, during the daytime, are generally adults who are meeting there. And are some uses that are similar to an office use, where, as we were talking about the office residential zoning specifically, the office use would still be permitted. And there are many offices up and down the street, real estate offices, that might have a conference room with a meeting of 12 people or so at any time during the day. So another church group meeting would be similar to the office use. And just kind of to reiterate, the current church operating there as we don't have a use in our zoning ordinance called church. It's a place of public assembly. And that's why Kelly said any place of, the place of public assembly was established as a legal non-conforming use and would be allowed to continue.
Well, most churches aren't churches supposed to go into, when we did a CI? civic institutional. We did that specifically because of the RLUIPA laws that I think Alderman Hanson brought up. So we would comply and have a zone for churches because of the RLUIPA laws. I remember that. I don't know how that plays in here, but I don't
We
want to
do
get too
have
complicated.
the CI district for civic and institutional uses, but also CI districts, or CI uses, civic and institutional uses are appropriate and permitted in many of the commercial zoning districts, because sometimes the commercial zoning districts have much more intensive uses than what a church might have.
Alderman Barnhill, go ahead.
I think there's probably 3 or 4 basic points, and John covered one of them in his speech, and I re-asked him that. If we rezone, does it solve the traffic problem? And that's what most of these people got up and said. They're concerned about the traffic problem, and I think his answer was, and I'll give him a chance to change it, I think his answer was, no, the rezoning doesn't solve the traffic problem. That's number one. Number two, the owners of the property never requested this. Number three, it is a down zoning. Now, we can hash it all we want to about what one piece of property bought $650,000 and another brought something else and something else. But the fact of the matter is, if they had to move out, they could not recover their investment with the down zoning that we're doing right here. I think it's a very, I'll be perfectly honest with you, I think it's an incorrect use of government at this level to come in and take a piece of property and downzone it without, in opposition to the property owners, without their request. And the answer was, we want to stop the traffic on 2nd Avenue South. And the answer was that we're really not stopping the traffic. There's traffic, there's cars parked everywhere. And we will get into many issues, and this is deviating some from this, about traffic downtown and what we're looking at building in this location right here, for as far as traffic is concerned, and all of the things that's going on. So I think that I'm going to support the amendment to delete the Five Stone Church property from ordinance 2021-21 whenever we get a chance to vote. And I think I've pretty well covered that. I don't think I need to go into what one piece of property brought and I'm voting for or against religion or whatever it is, because that's not what we're talking about here tonight.
Does anybody else want to address the amendment? Go ahead, Alderman Potts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have 2 questions, and the first is just a point of clarification off of what Alderman Barnhill was stating, is the current owner of the property did not request the zoning. Is there any type of legal requirement by city or by state that the property owner has to sign off or agree to that prior to this being done?
There is not such a requirement. The zoning ordinance authorizes the Board of Mayor and Aldermen, or the Planning Commission, or the Department of Planning and Sustainability to initiate a rezoning for a property, in addition to the property owner itself.
Okay. And then another piece to what Alderman Baggett was asking. There was a series of questions that you were answering for him, but at one point you made mention to 30 months, that the property owner could not do anything up until 30 months. But then what happens after month 31 forward?
So I was referring to what we call legally non-conforming uses. So when there's a zoning change and that use that's operating on that property, it doesn't comply with the new zoning district, they can continue to operate permanently unless they abandon that use for 30 months. So after 2.5 years of them leaving the property and not operating it as a place of public assembly, then any new use would have to meet the zoning district that stands at that time.
Okay. And so if they were to be grandfathered, and Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry, I can ask third and final question, is if they were to stay in this property for perpetuity and be grandfathered in, the change to office residential would not impact them, correct?
Not to my knowledge. If they continue to operate as a church, they could continue operating with all of those rights of the zoning ordinance.
Any other comments? And you ready to vote on the amendment to the original motion? Let's vote. Alderman Barnhill.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Blanton.
No.
Alderman Hanson.
Yes.
Alderman Peterson.
Yes.
Alderman Berger.
Yes.
Alderman Brown.
No.
Alderman Potts.
No.
And Alderman Baggett.
No.
You guys are really on the roll. I've thought about this a great deal because the very first question I got asked when I was running for alderman is, what is your feeling as far as commercial creep in downtown Franklin? And I remember my answer. I never had that question before, and I said, I think that's bad because we're trying to develop this area of downtown where people live and work and so on. So I'm very torn on that. The other thing is I'm concerned that we're changing this zoning. I can remember instances in the past where we've changed zoning by accident, and then we've come back and rectified it. At this point in time, I would like to, I'm going to vote no, and that is because of my belief that we need more residential downtown. But I'm going to leave it open that I want to have some better understanding moving forward from the church that is a fixer. Let's fix it, because we got another vote coming, and see if we can't find a resolution to some of the challenges that you've heard our neighbors speak about. So the amendment fails. Next, we'll go to the original motion. Is there any discussion on the original motion?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Alderman Barnhill.
With what we've done, and we're looking to fix something, I'm not sure what we're looking to fix, because the problems that were brought up, traffic and whatever, and you mentioned creep, and this has been that way, it's been there. The other thing is, let me say one more thing that kind of disturbs me just a little bit, is when we get up here or here, and we may not adequately cover a subject. I heard comments such as a gas station being here. Can there be a gas station there? In historic overlay zoning? In the current zoning? Or in the new zoning? Can there be a gas station? I heard comments about a tobacco warehouse or something or other being at this location. Well, I gotta be perfectly honest with you. I've been here for a long time, and there's those tobacco warehouse on 2nd Avenue. There's one on 11th, and there's one on Columbia Avenue that both burned years ago. So when we put those comments out like that, can a service station, can a gas station be there?
So I just pulled up our highly interactive
Oh, yes.
zoning ordinance in
Yes.
seconds, by the way, which used to take many minutes. And gas stations are permitted in NC but not in CC or DD.
So-
Historic preservation overlay zoning does not impact use, just building form and historic resources. So it's the base zoning district that's going to determine which uses are permitted in which district.
But that's interesting, because when you make that statement, the historic overlay zoning, the design of the building would preempt the gas station from being there. So even though it doesn't control the gas station, it does keep it from being there, because you couldn't design the gas station to meet the historic overlay zoning requirements.
It probably wouldn't fit.
I might say there are creative ways to.
There are creative ways.
To do that and
There'd
put the
be some
building
real
toward
good
the
ones.
street.
Yeah.
And so there's solutions from a design perspective for uses.
I'm gonna, I'll second, I'll support the second, because I want to hear what we're doing on the third final reading. And the mayor wants to do something differently from whatever we're doing, but I don't see any solution to this right here that does not absolutely devalue the property as far as the church is concerned.
Other comments on the original motion? Alderman Berger.
You know, you said about more traffic and everything, we all don't like traffic, but you gotta have traffic. If you want a downtown, and Mr. Mayor, I know that you said, about more, housing and everything, but downtowns thrive on commercial activity. If we don't have traffic, we have no customers, we have no patrons, and that's a problem. And to your comment, Clyde, with this whole vote here that we're looking at, realistically, it has to fit the location. It would have to fit on that property, and I'm not sure it could even fit. And also, gas stations don't go on side streets. They just don't go there. You have to put, in a marketing aspect, you have to put your stores where there's customers and there's business. And that's just not a logical place for it. Any gas station would not put a gas station there. Any company wouldn't put a gas station there. So I'm with Clyde. I think I'll go ahead and vote this through since we have one more vote on this.
Yep.
But I'm still standing with my original vote.
Any other comments?
I want to, real quick, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Alderman Baggett, of course.
Traffic was mentioned, but what happened was a conforming use, which was the temporary school, occurred. And that is allowable under central commercial. That highlighted the issue of the zoning to the neighborhood. And so that's why this isn't going to solve our traffic problems in downtown, but what it did was made downtown neighbors aware that what could be there. And so we're not affecting what's going on there now. We're just taking care of it for the future. And so, I mean, that's just, I don't want this to be, it's not about traffic. This isn't a traffic solving endeavor. This is a use solving endeavor, but I agree.
Yep, all right. Well, that's not necessarily totally, completely accurate, because we definitely heard people get up and talk about traffic and how dangerous it was.
Yep.
And you couldn't cross the street. And there's people doing 50 miles an hour up and down through there. That sounds like traffic issues to me. And when I asked the question, specifically asked the question, does the downzoning of this property help traffic? The answer was no.
Correct.
Correct. Okay.
It does, however, if I could put a caveat in there, the specific complaint that was relayed to me through this was the stacking and the congestion from the drop-off and pickup of the educational facility, of the school, which was occurring on Second Avenue and backing up all the way down the block. So that's the congestion issue that has been raised through this process.
But that was temporary, and that's been taken care of, and that's been addressed as no longer going to happen.
It is part of the bigger question of zoning, because educational facilities are permitted uses in the CC district, whereas they are not in the OR district. That's central to this discussion.
I think one last thing, I think Clyde said this best. We've got some problems here. We've got rezoning that really didn't solve the problem for the traffic. Number two, owner never requested it. To me, that's city overreach. And it is a downzoning of the property.
Ready to vote? Alderman Barnhill, this is for the original motion to approve ordinance 2021-21.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Blanton.
Yes.
Alderman Hanson.
Can you clarify this vote before I vote, please?
Yes, ma'am. We're approving, consideration of ordinance 2021-21, an ordinance to amend the Franklin zoning ordinance and zoning map as part of an annual update,
The whole thing.
as presented. So your vote?
Mr. Mayor, may I clarify? I think.
No.
All right, no. This is second reading.
It's her,
Okay, so this only approves the second reading, it will go to a third reading.
Right.
Yes.
That's
I
correct.
wanted to clarify.
Yeah.
thank you. Alderman Peterson,
Yes.
Alderman Berger,
Yes.
Alderman Brown,
Yes.
Alderman Potts,
Yes.
Alderman Baggett,
Yes.
passes unanimously. We'll now go to item number 4, which is consideration resolution 2020-292, a resolution to annex 5 properties consisting of 295.275 acres located southeast of the intersection of Clovercroft Road and Oxford Glen Drive, addressed as 4316 Murfreesboro Road, 4324 Murfreesboro Road, 4099 Clovercroft Road, and 4101 Clovercroft Road, and adjoining the city limits within the eastern part of the Franklin urban growth boundary. Some people call it Poplar Farms PUD. So is there a motion?
Motion to approve
Thank you, Alderman Barnhill.
with a comment.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Go ahead with your comment.
I think Alderman Berger presented maybe a traffic study of some sort, but I don't think it had very much discussion at the workshop a while ago. Do you mind clarifying that?
Sure. There was, got this from traffic today, in that on Oxford Glen, coming off of Clovercroft, at the peak was about close to 1,500, 1,400 and some odd. Let's see, let me read this again. 1,422 cars on that stretch of road that we're really concerned about on Oxford Glen, from Clovercroft all the way down through McKay's Mill. And that's during the pandemic. So you have a lot of people not using that road at that time.
So what's the amount that you think you're adding to it?
Well, whatever traffic studies show, 568 houses, or a lot of houses. And on Oxford Glen, what is it?
I don't remember, it was 5,100 or something like that was road trips.
Do we have that actual number?
Oh, yeah.
The actual,
The road
yeah,
trips are
yeah,
on here.
for Poplar Farms, one in
Traffic study
discussion.
data.
Yeah.
I've heard numbers thrown out.
Yes.
Tolls.
So we did look at Oxford Glen, and it was deemed as not being critically impacted by the development. It will definitely have added traffic for sure. So it was not included in the actual traffic study. The impacts to Oxford Glen, those are numbers from about a year ago looking at it. And really looking at Oxford Glen too, it was built and designed as a collector road. The city portion of it was. There are no driveway accesses off of it. The only accesses are other public roadways. And the traffic numbers that we saw there were not of a big concern to not only our on-call traffic engineer, but also our city engineer when they scoped the project. They focused it really on Market Street and 96 and the safety study we did on Clovercroft Road. But you are correct, there will be added traffic to Oxford Glen.
You can
That
double
answer your
check
question,
those.
Alderman Barnhill?
Answered mine.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Alderman Blanton?
That's
I mean,
right.
not
It's a
Berger.
B.
I'm
It's a
kind of
B.
looking,
Just call
I
it
got
B.
Patrick
There's
Baggett
a
that's
little
way
reason.
down there.
There's a lot of Bs over here. I did vote for the annexation last time. I thought it was not a bad idea to vote for the annexation. But I'm not going to support the annexation this time because I don't support this development at this time, this zoning. Everyone talks about getting Market Street through, and because we want Market Street through so badly, we're willing to compromise on other things that I don't think need to be compromised on. We said, this board said a long time ago, and for the new people, listen up. We looked at all the development that happened on East McEwen. We had the rest of McKay's Mill, we had Ashton Park, we had Avalon, we had Mead of Avalon, then we had Breezeway, we had Garden Club Estates, all allowed to be put over there without that road being addressed. Doing the same thing over here. We're not addressing Clovercroft because it's very difficult right now, and it's city-owned and county-owned, I get that. But it's a little premature for that. And then we have never addressed the elephant in the room, which is Oxford Glen. Nobody's talking about it. We didn't even put it in the traffic study, for heaven's sakes. So that to me is a red flag that that was not put in. We don't have driveways, you're right, Paul, but we have houses facing that street, And this city talks about walkability, walkability, walkability. Let's walk some more. Let's make our community more pedestrian friendly, when we're not doing this, we're doing just the opposite. We have sidewalks over there, and we have a roundabout where a 14-year-old girl, the car clipped her clothes. Thank God she wasn't killed this summer. And I had the street people out there. We had to put up new signs. We had to pollute the roundabout with more signs. I hate all these signs, but we have to pollute our roundabouts with these signs because people don't know enough to stop for pedestrians. And we're not addressing that elephant in the room. It's Oxford Glen. We have people walking down.
Would you mind
constantly.
sticking to the rezoning?
Well, yeah, I don't want you to rezone it because there's issues. If you rezone this property, then you have an opportunity to do a development over there. I'll stop and I'll talk about the rezoning later.
I'm sorry, I meant the annexation. So, any other comments
Yep.
about the
That's
annexation?
right.
Ready to vote?
Yes, sir.
Alderman Barnhill.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Blanton.
Yes, sir.
Alderman Hanson.
Yes.
Alderman Peterson.
No.
Alderman Berger.
No.
Alderman Brown.
No.
Alderman Potts.
No.
And Alderman Baggett.
Yes.
We have a 4-4 tie vote, and I'll be supporting continuing to annex these 5 properties into the city of Franklin based on Resolution 2020-292. Item 5 is ordinance 2020-34, an ordinance to zone 295.275 acres, Plan PD 1.84 District, Hillside Hillcrest Overlay District, and Scenic Corridor Overlay District for the properties located southeast of the intersection of Clovercroft Road and Oxford Glen Drive, addressed as 4316 Murfreesboro Road, 4324 Murfreesboro Road, 4099 Clovercroft Road, and 4101 Clovercroft Road, Poplar Farms PUD subdivision. Is there a motion?
So move.
Thank you, Alderman Barnhill. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Alderman Baggett. Any discussion? Did you want to make any comments, Alderman Barnhill? You
No, I'm ready.
ready to vote?
I would like to make a comment.
Go
on the
ahead,
zoning.
Alderman Berger.
Okay, so this is more appropriate to fit my comments for the zoning then. Houses face the street on Oxford Glen. We are a pedestrian-friendly, or trying to be a pedestrian-friendly community. Putting a large development over there without trying to at least be in tandem with the development that happens, I think is not the right thing to do. We have a very walkable community over there, a restaurant that is packed out every night, and Publix. I was really surprised that this went through, because I think we're doing the same thing here that we did with McEwen Drive. And the other thing I look at, I would like for each of you to answer this, but I'm not going to ask you verbally to answer it. But I look at this and think to myself, how many of you have actually driven over there? And you probably have. You drive over there a lot.
It's
And-
not okay to be asking for that, please.
Well,
I don't
it's-
think that's appropriate. They can vote whenever they vote, and they can indicate that.
That's
Or they
fine.
can make a public comment and
I'm
declare
not
it
asking-
themselves.
I'm not
You just
asking.
asked.
I
So-
asked, and I said, I'm not expecting an answer, but I want them to ask themselves
Would you continue with your
that.
comments, Alderman Berger?
Yeah, I
Please.
want them to ask themselves that. And I look at everybody and I think to myself, everyone lives, except Randy and I, west of Matt Ketcher, and I'm not sure how many times we've driven there and we've seen this area. So, I have a feeling it's going to pass tonight. If it passes, then I would expect every alderman on this board to support me in lowering the speed limit on Oxford Glen to 25, lowering it on Liberty Pike to 25, and also putting either some rumble strips or something don't like the speed humps, but something at the hill on Oxford Glen that proceeds down the hill there, so the people in Pemberton Heights and Pemberton Heights and Providence can get out on Oxford Glen with all the increased traffic that's gonna come. That's all my comments.
Thank you, Alderman
Mayor,
Butler.
I would like to maybe ask.
Go ahead.
One question. You don't expect the house to be built till probably 2016, do you?
Wait, correct
What-
your year.
2016.
2020.
I mean, 2026, excuse me.
That's
You-
why I'm
He
wrong.
said yes, he knew what I was
Trick question.
saying, but 2026, 5 years from now. You-
I think the first house moved, then come up
Yes, when does the first house come up?
The end of 2020.
Yeah, I'm not sure how appropriate this is.
Oh, well, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have done that. Let it go. I think we said the other night the first one wouldn't come up till 2026, so I'm satisfied with that. We have time to look at issues that are over there. We have time to address certain issues. And the thing about this is that with all of the discussion for the last, I'd say, 10 years, maybe a little less, there's been 2 roads that have been pushed by one particular person on the board. That's McEwen and Market Street.
Right.
And we have a chance now to put Market Street in, a $14 million development, a street. That has to be done before the houses are, before you can do a CO, before you can even sell a house, okay? He knows that, and that's the reason that we can go back and look at this thing right here and say that in 5 years, we've got 5 years to address the issues that we're talking about. But we're not gonna address Clovercroft. That's, I mean, we can holler all we want to, but until something happens and the county commission can collect more than $14 million a year for roads, Clovercroft is not going to happen. Okay, so write that one off. Enough said.
Mr. Mayor?
Go ahead.
And I think Alderman Hanson and others, we had some email correspondence. I think everyone received them about the berm and the landscaping and that in writing. And the gentleman this afternoon brought it up, and I don't think this is appropriate it's not in an amendment. However, I would like for us to work with staff to figure out where, in fact, there could be some, I've spoken with the applicant, and I think there is the intention there to do this, but where, in fact, we could make that in writing, and
Well, I think the point of, I need to call you down just a moment.
Yes.
We're talking about the zoning.
Understood.
And we're not talking about the berm and the
Correct.
buffer, which apparently comes with the landscaping plan later
Okay.
on in the process, and staff is very well aware of
Okay,
that and
good.
very used to doing
I
that.
apologize.
Other comments or questions?
I do. I would just say, yeah, Market Street's real important, Clyde, and also the comment, but to me, it's not at the expense of this development of the density that's here without first being able to address these other issues. And when you said we have 5 years, we have time to address it, but there's nothing you can do with that roundabout. There's nothing you can do to enlarge it, and the infrastructure off Oxford Glen Road is a good road. It's a very good road, but it's a 2-lane road with houses and walkability in that community, so it really affects that to a great extent.
Okay, looks like we're ready to vote, but I have a quick comment about Clovercroft because we did have Commissioner Lawrence here one night that made the comment that they tried to give us Clovercroft and we didn't take it. The actual issue on Clovercroft, in my understanding, is that it is a road that has portions of it in the city and portions of it in the county. The portions that are in the county, the property owners that front that road own to the middle of the road. So it's not an easy fix, and I think Alderman Barnhill's point about the expense of it is well taken. So if you're ready to vote, I'm going to go ahead and call the roll. So Alderman
Yes.
Alderman Blanton.
Yes.
Alderman Hanson.
Yes.
Alderman Peterson,
No.
Alderman Berger,
No.
Alderman Brown. No. Alderman Potts,
Yes.
and Alderman Baggett.
Yes.
Passes 5-3. So we'll now go to new business, which is Resolution 2021-138, a resolution declaring an existing section of right-of-way known as Simmons Ridge Drive, generally located east of South Carruthers Road and north of Long Point Way, as surplus.
Move for approval.
Thank you, Vice Mayor.
Second.
Thank you, Alderman Potts. Any discussion? Ready to vote? Alderman Barnhill.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Blanton.
Yes.
Alderman Hanson.
Yes.
Alderman Peterson.
Yes.
Alderman Berger.
Yes.
Alderman Brown.
Yes.
Alderman Potts.
Yes.
And Alderman Baggett.
Yes.
Thank you. Passes unanimously. Item number 7 is City of Franklin Contract 2021-271, Professional Services Agreement with Ground Penetrating Radar Systems LLC for Advanced Underground Utility Investigations for the Liberty Pike Mallory Lane Intersection Improvements Project at a cost of $44,250. Is there a motion? Thank you, Alderman Barnhill, seconded by Alderman Brown. Any discussion? Seeing none, ready to vote? Alderman Barnhill.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Blanton.
Yes.
Alderman Hanson.
Yes.
Alderman Peterson.
Yes.
Alderman Berger. Alderman Brown.
Yes.
Alderman Potts.
Yes.
And Alderman Baggett.
Yes.
Passes unanimously. We'll now go to item number 8, which is consideration of mayor's appointment of Alderman Jason Potts to the Franklin Beer Board. How did we miss that last time? Thank you, Vice Mayor.
Second.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Thank you, Alderman Brown. Any discussion on that one? Let's vote. Alderman Barnhill.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Blanton.
Yes.
Alderman Hanson.
Yes.
Alderman Peterson.
Yes.
Alderman Berger. Alderman Brown.
Yes.
Alderman Potts.
Yes.
Glad you're interested. Alderman Baggett.
Yes.
Passes unanimously. I'll entertain a motion to go in.
We have none.
Yay.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to
Sir.
adjourn. Seconded by Alderman Potts. All in favor, say aye. Aye. I love the enthusiasm.
That was an enthusiastic eye.